For 7 years, Ilara Voss had made herself small. She worked the night shift at a diner on the edge of Blackpine, a quiet town tucked between old pine forests and winding roads that most people forgot existed. She wore long sleeves even in the middle of summer. She kept her eyes down when she talked to strangers, because she knew that if anyone looked closely enough, they might see the flash of gold hiding behind the brown. To the humans who came in for coffee and pie, she was just a polite, quiet young woman who refilled cups and remembered how everyone liked their eggs. To the wolves who might have passed through town, she was nothing at all. She made sure of that. Ilara was not supposed to be alive. Her family, the old and almost forgotten line known as the first Howl, was believed to have died out 30 years ago, in a war that still lived in old stories. The first Howl bloodline was said to be the very root of wolf royalty, the family from which every Alpha King's power was believed to descend, even now. When the war ended and the last of that bloodline vanished, most wolves accepted that the line was gone forever. Only a few old wolves still whispered that maybe, somewhere, a single heartbeat of that blood had survived. They were right, though no one knew it. Ilara had survived. She had been a child when her family was hunted down, hidden away by an aunt who gave her life for her, and raised in secret far from any pack. She grew up learning one lesson above all others: never let anyone see what you truly are. She followed that lesson every single day. She never shifted. She never let her wolf out to run under the moon, no matter how much it howled inside her chest, aching to be free. She told herself this was safety. It also felt, more and more each year, like a slow kind of dying. That fragile peace ended the day Kale Draven came to Blackpine. Kale was the reigning Alpha King, the wolf who had brought together 5 warring territories under one banner, through strength that no one dared question. He was not the kind of king who traveled without reason. Kings did not chase rumors themselves. They sent trusted wolves to investigate and report back. But this particular rumor had reached him directly, carried by a low voice at a border meeting. An unregistered wolf was living in a small human town, unclaimed by any pack, unafraid of pack law, and somehow invisible to every wolf who had ever passed through. Something about that rumor would not leave him alone. His wolf, usually calm and controlled, grew restless every time he thought about it. So instead of sending someone else, Kale went to Blackpine himself. He found her on a slow Tuesday night, standing behind the diner counter with a coffee pot in her hand. The bell above the door rang as he stepped inside, and Ilara looked up out of habit, the same polite smile ready on her lips. Then she saw him, and her hands went still. She did not know his face from any photograph. She had spent years avoiding wolf gatherings, wolf news, anything that might connect her to that world. But her body knew before her mind did. Every instinct she had buried for 7 years rose up at once, sharp and certain. This man was not human. This man was powerful. This man was dangerous to her in ways she could not yet explain. Kale felt it too, though he did not understand it right away. His wolf, the part of him that had bowed to no one since the day he took the crown, rose in his chest with something close to reverence. It was not desire, though there was some of that too. It was recognition, old and instinctive, the kind of feeling a soldier might get standing suddenly in the presence of a forgotten king. He sat at the counter and ordered coffee, watching her more closely than a stranger should. Ilara felt his eyes on her the entire time, and her hands trembled slightly as she poured his cup. She told herself it meant nothing. She told herself many wolves passed through small towns without ever noticing her. But this one noticed. She could feel it in the air between them, thick and impossible to ignore. 2 nights later, Kale returned, and this time he did not pretend to be a simple traveler. He waited until the diner had emptied out, until it was just the 2 of them and the hum of an old refrigerator in the back. Then he spoke plainly. "I know you're a wolf," he said. "I don't know why you're hiding it, but I know." Ilara's heart pounded so hard she was sure he could hear it. She thought about denying it, about laughing it off as a strange joke, but something in his voice told her that lying would only make things worse. Wolf law was clear on this point, and she knew it well even though she had spent years avoiding it. Any wolf living unregistered, unclaimed by a pack, could be formally challenged by an alpha king who suspected them of hiding. It was called a right of challenge, a public demand to prove one's nature, or deny it before witnesses. If Kale chose to invoke it here, in front of the few late customers who might wander in, her secret life would end in an instant. "Please," she said quietly. "Not here. Not like this." Something in her voice, more than her words, made him pause. He nodded once, slowly, and told her he would return the next night for her answer. Then he left, and Alara stood alone in the empty diner, with her hands shaking and her mind racing through every terrible outcome she could imagine. She did not wait for him to return. That night, she packed a single bag with the few things she could not leave behind, and she left Blackpine before sunrise. She told herself she was protecting herself, protecting the secret her aunt had died keeping safe. But some small, honest part of her knew she was also running from something she was not ready to feel. Kale discovered she was gone the next evening, and instead of being angry, he found himself more determined than he had been in years. He did not send wolves after her. He did not treat this as a matter for his court. Instead, he went after her himself, alone, driven by an instinct he could not fully explain even to himself. He followed her trail across 3 counties over 2 sleepless nights, piecing together fragments of her life as he went. In an old library in a town 2 hours from Blackpine, he found a newspaper clipping from 30 years ago, a grainy photograph of a burning house, and a headline about the fall of the first Howl family. In a second-hand shop, an elderly wolf, who remembered the old stories, told him quietly that rumors had always said one child of that bloodline might have survived, hidden away, and never spoken of again. Slowly, carefully, the truth began to take shape in his mind. He thought of the way lesser wolves in Blackpine's few passing visitors had lowered their eyes around Alara without knowing why, the way she carried herself with a quiet dignity that did not match a life of hiding in diners and rented rooms. He thought of the small scar on her shoulder he had glimpsed once, shaped strangely like a crown of thorns, and what that scar might really mean. He found her at dawn on a ridge above a town 3 counties from Blackpine, sitting alone and watching the sky begin to lighten. She heard him approach and did not run this time. She was tired, in a way that went far beyond sleepless nights. Tired of running, tired of hiding a piece of herself so completely that she sometimes forgot what it felt like to be whole. Kale did not challenge her this time. He did not speak of pack law or royal claims. He simply sat down a respectful distance away and asked her, quietly, who she really was. For a long moment, Alara said nothing. Then, slowly, the words she had held inside for 7 years began to come out. She told him about the night her family was hunted down when she was a child, about the aunt who gave up everything to keep her alive, about years of moving from town to town, always careful, always watching, always small. She told him what it felt like to have a wolf inside her that had never once been allowed to run free under the moon. Kale listened without interrupting, and when she finished, he did not look at her with pity or suspicion, but with something gentler. He told her, honestly, that he had come to Blackpine chasing a rumor about an unregistered wolf, expecting to find someone breaking pack law out of carelessness or defiance. He had not expected to find the last living piece of a bloodline that every Wolf King's authority still quietly rested upon. As the sun rose fully over the ridge, something in Alara finally broke open, not out of fear this time, but out of relief. She stood, and for the first time in 7 years, she let her wolf answer the call she had silenced for so long. She shifted, and what emerged was not an ordinary wolf. Her coat was pale as bone, catching the early light like moonlight given form. Her eyes burned like struck matches, gold and steady. When she lifted her head and howled, the sound did not simply carry across the valley below. It seemed to reach into something ancient and half-remembered in every wolf within miles, a note of authority and belonging that had not been heard in 30 years. Kale felt his own wolf drop low before he had consciously decided to move at all. Somewhere far off, in territories across the region, alphas stirred in their sleep, uneasy and alert, unable to explain why a single distant howl had unsettled them so deeply. They did not need to be told what it meant. Their instincts already knew. The royal howl, the bloodline everyone believed had ended in fire 30 years ago, had never truly died. It had only been waiting, hidden in plain sight, pouring coffee, and counting tips in a small diner, no one thought twice about. When Alara shifted back, she expected fear from him, or worse, some cold calculation about what her existence meant for his crown. Instead, Kale simply looked at her the way he had that very first night in the diner, with quiet, honest recognition. He did not ask her to return to Blackpine in chains, and he did not summon a council to decide her fate. He told her plainly that her bloodline gave her a claim that could stand beside his own, a truth that would frighten wolves who valued power more than peace, and one that could make her a target the moment word spread. But he also told her that she no longer had to face that danger alone. He would stand beside her, not because pack law demanded it, but because some part of him had recognized her the moment she walked into view, long before either of them understood what that meant. Alara did not fall into his arms out of relief, and Kale did not offer her a crown out of duty. What passed between them on that ridge, as the sun climbed fully into the sky, was slower and far more honest than either of those things. It was the beginning of trust, fragile and new, built between a woman who had spent 7 years disappearing and a king who had spent his whole life being seen too much. They stayed there together as morning settled fully over the valley, neither of them in a hurry to return to the world waiting below. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Alara did not feel the need to make herself small. Her old name had finally been spoken aloud, not as a secret to be buried, but as a truth she no longer had to carry alone. Far below them, across 5 territories that had never known her name, word of the dawn howl was already beginning to spread. The wolf world that believed its throne had long been settled was about to learn that it had never truly been whole at all, and on that quiet ridge, as the light grew warm and steady around them, Alara Voss finally allowed herself to imagine a future where hiding was no longer the only way to survive.